Welcome to the Power in Motion podcast, the show for women who want to develop a kinder relationship with their body so you can feel healthy, happy, and confident without restricting food, doing torturous exercise, or constantly worrying about the number on the scale. I'm your host, Kim Hagel, size-inclusive fitness specialist and certified non-diet health and life coach specializing in body image. This podcast is here to provide weight-neutral, health at every size aligned information and coaching on sustainable habits and mindset shifts so you can feel your very best in the body you have right now. Let's lace up our runners and go for a walk while we chat. Hey friends, welcome back to the Joyful Movement Show. I'm so glad that you're here. If you're new, welcome. I'm Kim Hagel, personal trainer and registered holistic nutritionist, and I help women who feel unmotivated to discover what moves them through intuitive movement and intuitive eating and mindset coaching so they can heal their relationship to exercise and feel confident in their now body. Now, if you have been hanging out here for a while, you've heard me talk lots about how when we can change our mindset around exercise and engage with movement in a way that's enjoyable and makes us feel successful and where we have choices and we feel empowered, how that can really improve our motivation, and it can help us to have this joyful, consistent relationship with exercise that we all want. And that's the ticket to getting unstuck. But here's the thing. If we haven't done the work to repair our thoughts about our body, if we're still struggling with a negative body image, then when we start engaging with movement this way, it can almost catch us off guard, where in the past we might have had a difficult, avoidant relationship with exercise and never thought that we could do anything physical with our body. That was certainly my history. And then we try out these things and we challenge ourselves and we suddenly see what we're capable of, and we see that we are strong, that we can be successful, and we feel empowered, and it feels good. It can almost go a little too far in the opposite direction, where what started out as a joyful experience in recognizing the power that is within us can very quickly morph into something that becomes about trying to prove ourselves and see just how much we're capable of, often to our own detriment. We push ourselves too far because we still haven't done that work to heal our relationship with our bodies or our body image. That was certainly my story when I first discovered movement. You can hear all about that in episode 1. But it's also the story of our guest that's with us on the show today. Robyn is a friend of mine. We met through a local running group that we both participate in, the Trail Sisters, and she's currently a client of mine now in Right Body for Me. And I'm really honored that Robyn has very vulnerably decided to come on the show and share her story about how she first discovered running. I did not realize when I first met her that she hasn't always been a runner. Her journey towards running, well, she'll tell you about it in the podcast, but came as a result of a very severe injury that she had. So running started out as a way to celebrate the strength and power of her body and her recovery from her severe injury, but very quickly shifted into something that was very focused on metrics, measuring speed, measuring distance, and comparing herself to her own self and to others. So Robyn shared how that was interfering with her enjoyment of running and how she started to make the mindset shifts to get back to a place of that runner's high, what it originally was for her, this way to clear her mind and connect with her body and just be in nature, enjoying time to herself. So she'll share about that mindset shift and also how changing her mindset impacted other surprising areas in her life. So I'm going to stop talking and just turn it right over to my interview with Robyn. This was a great conversation. I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. Hey, Robyn.
Hello.
I'm so happy to welcome you to the Joyful Movement Show. You and I are friends, of course, and now we're working together in a client coach relationship. And we've had some really interesting conversations lately that I thought would be helpful to share with our listeners. And I really appreciate you being willing to come and share your story and your journey with us. So, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. It's exciting.
Well, it's my pleasure. So, one question that I like to ask my guests before we get into who you are and what you do and all of that good stuff is, what does joyful movement mean to you? And maybe that's changing as you explore the concept. But yeah, where are you at with the idea of joyful movement right now?
For me, just a little back information. I would have trouble with exercise and movement, almost being obsessive with it. So for me right now, and getting to a place where I am right now, joyful movement is about moving because it feels good, not
Mhm.
because I have to.
Mm,
Yeah, and doing things for me.
great. I love
Yeah.
that. And yeah, and we will definitely unpack that a little more as we chat here today. But as I said, I appreciate you so much sharing your story and being honest about your journey in what exercise used to mean to you and how that's transitioning now. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, how you came to be interested in the non-diet approach to movement?
For sure. So I'm a mother of three wonderful kids. They're young kids. So I have a 5-year old girl and a 2-year old and a 5-month old boy. Um, for me, it's always been a struggle,
Hmm.
whether it's been being on a diet. I have a history of an eating disorder. So coming to work with you and working with the non-diet idea, I think a lot of it has been an ongoing battle, and things just kind of they've gotten quite a bit better, but it's always been a struggle.
Mhm.
And seeing the diet culture everywhere we go,
Mhm.
and not wanting my daughter to fall into that.
Mm.
So she's 5 now, and she obviously picks up, I feel like, on everything.
Mhm.
And so I want to be that role model of non-diet culture. I don't want her to feel like she needs to change herself in any way, and I want her to be happy and strong in the body and the being that she is.
Mhm. Mhm. So when you talk about it being a struggle, are you talking about accepting your body, accepting yourself as you are?
Absolutely. Also, just having a baby, right?
Oh,
5 months
yeah.
ago, I had my most recent child, and so being pregnant in general is a blessing and the best thing that's happened to me, but also very much a struggle for me.
Mhm.
Body image has always been a battle that I've had,
Mhm.
and getting pregnant and your body changing
Mhm.
on its own is its own thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If I had to ask what contributes to your struggle with body image, is there one thing you can think of?
Um, I think a big thing is society and how everything is. I mean, they go back and forth between like the ideal being a waif-like body to being, a strong fitness body. There's always that ideal.
Mhm.
And as a woman, as a mom, as a human being, because I mean, men struggle with it too, um, feeling like you're not there,
Mhm.
right? There's always something wrong.
Yeah.
And so that's been a major finding for me, that, that's one of the core beliefs that I've hung on to for a number of years, is that, I'm not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, I think that's at the root of most women's body image struggle. I would venture to say almost all of us, if we struggle with body image, that's what it's rooted in, is like always having to compare ourselves to some made up ideal that we can never achieve, and which changes from year to year and decade to decade, and constantly comparing ourselves to that and feeling like we don't measure up. So yeah, I 100% understand what you're talking about. And I'm sure our listeners do too. So let's chat about your relationship to movement. You and I met a couple of years ago through a local running group that we participate in, the Trail Sisters, which is so much fun. We go out in the bush and run just for fun.
For sure.
But it surprised me when I met you. When I met you, and now we've been getting to know each other on a deeper level. I didn't know that you weren't always a runner. So can you share with us about what sparked your interest in running in the first place?
For sure. So I've always been an active person. I've loved sports. I loved being outside in nature and everything. I just never enjoyed simply running. It was, if it was a sport and it involved running, I mean, obviously I would do it. But just to go out for a run, it was never my thing. That changed in 2011. I was in a very serious car accident. It was a hit and run. And I fractured my back in a few places. So it left me walking with a walker and basically having to reteach my body how to walk properly. So when all of that was taken away, I felt like the ultimate goal would be to run. That would be the proof that I had gotten back and gotten my body back, and the strength of my body was there, So I started with, I went from walking with a walker to walking with walking sticks to running with walking sticks.
Wow.
It was a progression for sure.
Yeah.
But now I love it. You talk about us girls going out in the bush, and it's true. And it feels like we're like kids and we go out and play.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that goal. When you shared that with me originally, I was like, what a great goal to help you through your recovery. As you're laying there feeling like your body is broken, aspiring to be able to run and feel confident and strong and powerful in your body, and being able to do something that actually wasn't even a priority ever before, but would be a real testament to your healing and your strength. And you got there, and you loved it. How did it make you feel when you first started running?
Exciting and very fulfilling. It was also, on a side note, it was done with someone who's my best friend right now. And, we had talked about, wouldn't it be cool if we walked a half marathon? So that was the initial goal. And then there was some running involved in the training for that. And so, it wasn't me just going out the door by myself, trying to run. It was, I had support, obviously. And, but yeah, it just felt so freeing.
Yeah. I love that. So then things started to change a little bit, right? We recently, yeah, of course, as things do, right?
For sure.
The mind takes over and gets involved. And then, so recently we were talking in one of your coaching sessions, and you were feeling really discouraged about your running, and it wasn't as joyful as it used to be. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a competitive person in nature. That's just the way I am. And so running went from something that was very freeing, and doing it, about the strength of my body and for different reasons, to looking at the metrics. And I use Strava, and there's so many different programs out there. I personally use Strava, and it's a blessing and a curse all in one.
Mm-hmm.
The whole comparing yourself, right, goes back to the body image that I struggle with, and comparing myself. And the harder I would push, it felt like the slower I'd go. And if I did one distance one day, then I should be able to do that distance the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not realistic. I mean, there's so many factors that contribute to that: sleep, food, hydration, just even how you feel. Like you just have bad days.
Oh, sure.
And so I had all of this expectation in my runs, and then I was feeling defeated after them, because every run wasn't an optimal run, which is completely unrealistic, but it was still in my head. So I was feeling deflated after my running versus, that runner's high.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what started out as this joyful, freeing experience in this way to celebrate the strength of your body eventually became a competition with yourself, or a comparison to others. And I mean, that's what happens when we use apps to track our progress. We see everybody else's results. So it's very easy to go, oh, well, she was able to do this distance in that time. Why can't I? And like you say, there's all of these things that contribute to our speed and our endurance and all of that. We logically know that, but in our mind, we're still holding ourselves to an unrealistic standard and expecting ourselves to be able to do what we did yesterday or last year, or So
Exactly.
what do you think was behind all that comparison? What was that core belief that was leading you to judge yourself, and focus on the metrics instead of how you wanted to feel?
I think it came back down to not feeling good enough. I mean, like comparing myself to other people and not feeling like I measured up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny how those core beliefs kind of disguise themselves and show up in different aspects of your life.
Well, it's so true. And I think that's something that I've observed most of my clients, yourself included, as they go through the program and they realize it's not fun to uncover those core beliefs. But once you have it, you're like, oh, this is why I do this when I run. This is why I eat this way. This is why I parent that way. And, you see that core belief coming out in every area of your life. So were you aware at the time that was what was influencing your running behavior when you were looking at those metrics and trying to get those distances and speeds? Did you know that's what was going on?
I think there was, an element of knowing that was going on. I guess I didn't really know the extent to which it was.
Or did you feel like you had any control over it? Or was it just you were at the effect of these beliefs?
Yeah, like I think it ebbed and flowed, right? Like I think that, it's funny because, I would make goals and reach them, and I'd feel really good about them. And then in that same week, I would feel down at the bottom again.
Yeah.
So
and
it was
what's
just,
next?
it was
What's the next?
exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So once you started making this, once you really connected to this core belief and realized this is the thing I'm believing about myself that's causing me to feel inadequate or feel this sense of competition and comparison. That's why I'm not enjoying my runs. How did you work your way out of that?
A couple things. I had a small injury, not nothing substantial, that kind of took me away from running. Luckily, I have other types of movements that I feel good about, and that, like, participating those instead. But when I came to the realization how much it was bothering me and how much it was taking the joy of running away from me, I decided to, I mean, I still use Strava, but I decided to do something like hide my runs. So I could still see information. I mean, I like to know how far I've gone in the month or the year, especially if I'm training for a race or whatever. So I like the information that it provides, but by simply keeping it hidden from other people's to see, I found to be very freeing. Like whether I realized in the moment while I was running that I cared about what other people thought of my runs, I really did. Because when I hit it, I felt more free to stop when I needed to slow down, to, even take a pause and stretch. I didn't feel like I had to push through pain, push through, to get that number that I was after.
Yeah.
So simply just kind of turning off the visibility helped. I think also when I realized what the core belief was, prior to going out for my runs, I'd kind of check in with myself and be like, how do I feel today? Why am I going out for this run? What do I want to feel at the end of this run? And I think that that's really important, because in the beginning of my running time, I loved that runner's high after, that feeling of freedom and that feeling of like almost invigorating, right? Like the oxygen running through your body. I wanted to get that back. And in order to get that back, I needed to let go of the numbers, of the data, and just run because I liked it. I liked being out in nature. I liked being out, fresh air. I mean, especially during the pandemic, right? We all need that fresh air and, a little bit of sunshine and all of that. So those became more of the focus. I mean, it wasn't a switch that was flipped. I still, I obviously still struggle with stuff like that, but I'm really starting to check in before I go with, with what I want the outcome to look like.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I love everything you just said, everything. So what you're talking about, and the reason it's still a struggle, as you say, is because you're working on changing your mindset. Like you're changing your whole thought system about why you run and how you run. Right. And, just for clarity's sake, like making your Strava private is a great action to take that helps to just take the pressure off and, limit your exposure to other people's stuff and opinions and all of that. But, as we've talked about in our coaching relationship, is that we can't change how we feel really by taking different action, right? Like you said, that's a small step you took, but the real thing that has helped you change how you feel about running are these different thoughts or these different questions that you're asking yourself before you go out, right? You are aware now that your thoughts create your feelings. So before you go out on that run, you're asking, how do I want to feel? And then you're thinking thoughts like, well, how will I move my body that's going to create this feeling that I want to have in my body, right? And
exactly.
Right. So you're totally running in a different way. You're not connected to those metrics in the same way because that's not what's important to you. The important thing is the feeling that you're after, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a huge mindset shift. And
it really is.
Yeah. So how has it changed how you feel about running and just working out in general? Because as you said, you had a bit of an injury. How has it changed how you felt about moving?
Definitely for the better. I mean, I'm not, instead of, going out and moving and exercising to break down my body, I'm going out to like I said earlier, invigorate my body and build it up. So I'm enjoying it that much more. I'm, taking note of things that I never would have paid attention to, whether it's nature or how the sun looks or how the water looks on the lake, and just little, like, almost meditative.
Yeah.
Versus like push through.
Yeah. It's a lot more empowering place to be in, and I'm sure joyful and grateful too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
For your body and all of the things that you're experiencing while you're moving your body. Talk to me about your injury. Like, I just want to think for a second, like, if you hadn't done this mindset work, if you hadn't started to change your thoughts, how would that injury and not being able to run for a couple of weeks, what would that have looked like in the past? And how is it different now?
Yeah. I mean, in the past, I wouldn't have taken the rest that I needed to. I would have just pushed through the injury. Chances are made it 10 times worse and, be off for that much longer. I mean, that's physical. Mentally, the anxiety, the stress. We speak about all or nothing thinking, right? So working on that has helped because, yes, I can't run right now, but what can I do? Can I do yoga? Can I, now that it's nice, can I swim in the lake? Can I, there's so many ways to move your body, and those ways feel good too. And just knowing that and believing in that makes, even working through an injury that much easier.
Yeah.
Sure. It still sucks, but I mean, there's things I can do. A big part of exercise and movement for me right now is the me time. And so, yeah, it's great to be able to get out of the house and then, I don't hear the baby crying or whatever it is. But there's other ways that I can have me time. It just doesn't need to be running.
Yeah.
And so doing this work has helped me see that.
I'm so glad. I mean, I've had a similar experience in the past, right? I'm a runner myself, and it can feel like when we're training for an event specifically, like we have to do those runs as scheduled on time, the way that they're prescribed. And if we don't, then we're not going to be successful in our event, right? So the injury would always seem like this pressure or this setback. And then it's like, well, I can't run. What am I going to do? Well, the obvious answer is do nothing, when in actual fact, that doesn't help us mentally. It doesn't actually help our physical healing. And it truly does result in a setback because we're doing nothing. But as you say, when we can change our mindset and just move in other supportive ways that support our body to heal and keep us progressing, we still have a chance of being very successful at that event. And, even if the result isn't everything we hoped it would be, we at least kept moving and we felt good during our training, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I love how you mentioned earlier how when we see these core beliefs, we are aware of how they show up in our whole life. So outside of movement, or maybe it's movement, what would you say has been your biggest win since doing this mindset work?
I think, I haven't seen like big monumental changes yet. It's going to be a work in progress and it's going to take time. And I know that, but seeing the little wins, seeing things like, I don't know, based on how I feel, preventing me from going out and do something because I don't feel good in my body over something I'm wearing, for example. Working through what's really going on and going out anyways. Whereas, back to the all or nothing, I would have just changed and done nothing. Right. So seeing the little changes, slowing things down, slowing my reactions down, even as a mom. I mean, like, I get anxious and upset over something. And if I just take a moment and take a breath and think of what's really going on and what's really bothering me,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make me so reactive and so snappy, you know? So working through the thought process and how the thoughts and the feelings are linked.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that's been huge for me.
Yeah. And I know you said it's a work in progress, but it is a huge win. Just making that connection already that your feelings are a result of your thoughts and that your thoughts are changeable. That's huge. So don't sell yourself short. That's big, Robyn.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
It is. I'm really, really thankful that you've come and shared your story with our audience today. Is there anything else that's on your heart that you want to share before we wrap up?
I think, I think kindness is key. I think being kind to ourselves is important, especially with what we are faced with, right now with the pandemic, with the stresses of having our kids home doing school, of all of that. I think we just need to be kind to ourselves. I think social media has put expectations on us, and I always try to remember what I'm seeing on, Facebook, Instagram, or whatever is often the best of the best in a person's life, right? And remembering, remembering that we're all struggling and we're all having a tough time, and being kind and giving ourselves grace is huge.
It is so huge, right? We can be so hard on ourselves, especially when all we see is everybody else's highlight reel. And we can assume that everybody else has it so great and we're the only ones that are struggling. I think the world would be a much more understanding place if we were all a little more open and honest about our struggles. But
definitely
recognizing that we're not alone and being kind and compassionate to ourselves, I think, is fantastic advice. I'm so glad you brought that up as the note to finish on today. Sure. Once again, thank you so much, Robyn, for coming on the show and sharing your experience and your journey. I know that those who are listening will be impacted and will give them a lot of food for thought, and it really make a difference in their life. So I appreciate you being here today.
Well, thanks so much, Kim, for having me.
Well, what did you think? Did that interview give you some food for thought, get you thinking about things maybe in a different way? I'm sure on some level, all of us can relate to what Robyn shared in her story. I know I certainly can. That I'm not good enough. Man, it's a loud voice sometimes, isn't it? I know it is for me at least. And I'm so thankful for everything that I've learned over the last couple of years about our thoughts and how they impact how we feel, how they impact our relationship to not just movement and food and our body image, but every area of our life. And that's why I do what I do now, because it's our mindset, it's our thoughts that shape how we feel. We can't feel differently by doing different things. And that's what we try to do. We try to get a new program or try the different diet or try this, try that, and hoping that we'll feel better, we'll feel more confident, we'll feel successful, we'll feel empowered. And it doesn't work. That I'm not good enough voice will keep looking for every opportunity to prove that you're not good enough until you start to create thoughts centered around your innate value, that you are enough simply just by being here on this planet, irrespective of anything that you do or don't do or achieve or don't achieve or how you look like or how much money you make or anything. Knowing that you're enough and constantly managing that voice in your mind that tells you that you're not, that's the ticket to getting the change that you want to see in not just your relationship to food and movement, but in every area of your life. In a couple of weeks, I will have another guest on who's going to be diving deeper into that whole I'm not good enough voice. She's a therapist and she specializes in trauma and shame. So it'll be a really interesting conversation. So stay tuned for that one in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, of course, I love to stay connected with my listeners, so you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Radiant Vitality Wellness, and I welcome your questions and messages anytime. And if you're interested in learning about how we can work together, there's a couple of different ways that we can do that, but you can find all of that information on my website, www.radiantvitality.ca. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again today, folks. It's always a pleasure. I'll be back next Monday with another dose of non-diet motivation for you. In the meantime, here's to your radiant vitality. Thanks for tuning into the Power in Motion podcast today. If you love what you're learning here, then I invite you to take the next step of embodying these concepts into your own life so that you can live your healthiest, happiest life and never again feel held back by your body. Coaching is the fastest, most efficient pathway to taking what you know in your head to actually applying it and seeing results. Whether you're looking to make changes around movement, food, body image, or all three, I'm here to help you nurture a kind, respectful, and trusting relationship with your body so you can feel your very best. Click the link in the show notes to book a free consultation, and together we'll uncover what's getting in the way of you having the results you want. You'll leave this call knowing exactly what you need to work on, and together we'll explore whether one of my coaching offers is a good fit for you. I can't wait to meet you.